Welcome back, Leomonsterites, to another episode of Representing Leominster. And this is one of my favorite episodes of the entire year, where we are joined by Congressman Jim McGovern. I am forever grateful that we get to be represented by this wonderful congressman, and for your generosity for taking some time to fill us in on all of the things that are going on at the federal level and how folks might be able to get involved. And so, Congressman McGovern, how are you doing? I feel like it's a tough question to ask these days because everything is up in the air.
Everything is beautiful in its own way, right? I mean, that's the way I answer it. But no, these are challenging times for our country and for the world. They're challenging times locally too, as you know. But we have to keep our focus, and my focus is in how do I improve the quality of life for everybody, not just the people at the top, but how do we make things more affordable for people in the middle and those who are struggling to get in the middle.
Yeah, and I've always been so grateful for your leadership on food access down to the local level, working with our local food pantries and the Worcester County Food Bank. Can you talk a little bit about the work that still needs to be done at the federal level to tell the story of just how important these resources are?
Well, unfortunately, at the federal level, this Congress and this president aren't being particularly helpful. As you know, they have unilaterally cut money for food banks. They cut funding for the Farm to School program, which I think is an incredible initiative. And then their big, they call beautiful bill, I call the big ugly bill. There's $200 million worth of cuts to the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And some of these cuts won't kick in until the end of 2026, but some of the impacts are going to be felt sooner rather than later. For example, as you know, SNAP has work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents, and for those individuals who have kids who are over 18, they've changed that now. So now, if you're able-bodied and you have a child who's over 13, you're now subjected to these work requirements, more paperwork, more red tape. That we're waiting for the guidance to come out any day now. So that will be immediate. And I think a lot of people will lose their benefits. And then there's, right now you can get LIHEAP, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, and other benefits, and you have to be at a low income to get those things, and it doesn't count against you in terms of getting SNAP. Now it's going to count toward your income, so you may end up losing your food benefit. And I tell everybody all the time, there are some things we can live without. Food isn't one of them. And if we want to make America healthy again, we need to make sure that people have a benefit that can enable them to afford good food. And quite frankly, the current benefit is on average about $2 per person per meal. We should really be talking about how we expand that benefit, but that's not where the discussion is. And so we're trying to figure out ways to do no harm and to try to see whether there's any hope at changing some of these policies.
Yeah, we just wrapped up our budget at the state level, and I just want to highlight a program that you know a lot about, the Healthy Incentives Program, which is the state supplement to SNAP, and has been a real help for not only consumers to make sure that they're getting healthy, fresh produce, but for our local farmers, making sure that they have a kind of sustainable revenue source. Yeah,
SNAP is not just about making sure people have enough to put food on the table. It's also about helping out local farmers. And by the way, at the state level, one of the changes that has been made is that on the federal level is that more and more of the cost of SNAP is going to fall on to the state. And as you know, I mean, Massachusetts is doing okay, but we're not overflowing in excess money. And under this big, bad, ugly bill, Massachusetts will probably have to come up with an additional $300 million a year just to make sure that people don't have their existing benefits cut.
Yeah. A kind of common refrain that we keep bringing up is if you're seeing a change in any of your benefits, reach out to us, reach out to the congressman's office. It's really important for us to know, and if you have questions about changes you're seeing, sometimes it could be paperwork that we can help with. But other times it might be a policy change that we've got to figure out what to do.
And sometimes you just might be, there's a piece of information missing, or you might be inadvertently taken off the benefit wrongly. And so just please let us know anytime you get any bad news about your SNAP benefit or your LIHEAP benefit or any other federal benefit or state benefit.
Yeah, yeah. Are there other issues that you want to highlight while you're here in Leominster?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, what we're trying to do is to reorient the focus of Washington on issues of affordability. I mean, the cost of living is still too high. Food prices are going up. Everything's going up. This tariff policy is also going to result in costs going up. And our focus ought to be on how do we make life more affordable for people, not more expensive. And one of the things that I found particularly outrageous about this big, ugly bill that Congress passed and the president signed into law is that, there are tax cuts for multimillionaires and billionaires. I mean, does Jeff Bezos need another tax cut? What, to buy another yacht? And by the way, tax cuts cost. Yeah. And so, why are we cutting taxes for people at the very, very top when, quite frankly, that money could be better used at making sure that we're investing in cities like Leominster, for example, making more transportation and infrastructure money available, making more brownfields money available, helping support our small business community, helping, create opportunities for, more, business parks and more jobs. And so, that's kind of the frustration right now is that it seems that so much of what we're doing is aimed at helping those who are well off and well connected when people who are working harder than ever don't seem to be getting a break. And so, we're trying to change the focus.
And we have a test case in Massachusetts of kind of doing the inverse with the Fair Share Amendment that we all voted on. There was a lot of fear-mongering that once we passed the Fair Share Amendment, folks who earned over $1 million a year would flee the state. We've actually found we have more millionaires. They're making even more money, and now we're surpassing the $2 billion estimate and seeing more like $3 billion projected to come in for revenue dedicated to transportation and public education. Like, these are things that make our community stronger, create local jobs, and just boost the entire economy.
Yeah, look, I have nothing against Elon Musk making multi-billions of dollars or Jeff Bezos. Good for them, right? But I do have a problem with greed and with corruption, and I do have a problem with a system that seems rigged. I mean, the bottom line is that our tax code, our federal tax code, is a mess. And all kinds of loopholes have been put into the tax code to benefit, again, those at the very, very top. So you have multimillionaires and billionaires paying an effective, their tax rate, they're paying an effective tax rate that is lower than somebody, who's making $50,000 or $60,000 or $100,000 a year. That just doesn't seem right to me. Again, you're going to still be a billionaire if you pay a little bit more, but you pay a little bit more. And the burden shouldn't always have to fall on those in the middle and those struggling to get into the middle. And I blame, the kind of this rigged system and the corruption in our, in our political system on campaign funding. I mean, we need campaign finance reform. And I hope that if ever the stars align and we can get passed a bill that that actually puts into place honest to goodness campaign finance reform so that, billionaires and millionaires and big corporations don't have an enlarged influence, we ought to do that. I mean, our government ought to be focused in on helping those in the middle and those who are struggling to get in the middle. Again, I'm not bad-mouthing those who are at the top. Good for them. But we just need fairness in our system. And when I go around my district, which is a big district, and then as you go around, you talk to your constituents, the issue of affordability comes up all the time. So, we have to make life more affordable for people.
And the story I often tell is just talking about kind of how much it's changed generationally. So my grandparents both worked at the local grocery store for decades, and they raised a family, and they owned a home, and they actually raised 5 kids, right? Like, that was very normal. And that grocery store provided them with a pension that provided for their care when they needed it at the end of their life. And that, for Peter and I in our 30s, is unthinkable, right? Like, most of us are struggling to find permanent long-term jobs with kind of good, robust benefits.
And then someday you might want to retire, but you don't want to retire in absolute poverty. I mean, you want to be able to continue to live a quality of life. You want to be able to pay your bills, your mortgage, your rents, whatever. But that is an issue. My son and I have that conversation all the time. You know, the way it was when my parents raised me and my sisters is different today. And as a result, people can't retire. As a result, people, are in debt that they don't see a way to get out of. And that's not the American dream, or the American lifestyle that I think people had hoped we would be at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another big question that we often get is kind of what's going to happen around health insurance. We continue to spend a whole lot more than most other countries on health care. We don't necessarily see the same kind of healthcare outcomes and an uncertainty around what's going to happen with mass health.
Yeah, well, and that's why this Trump's big ugly bill is such a disaster, is because it cuts the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. So some people are going to feel that effect sooner rather than later, and then by the end of 2026, it's going to cut Medicaid by close to $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. We're told that between 15 to 17 million people are going to lose their benefits. Who thinks that's a good idea? And by the way, those people then will have no other choice but to get their health care at emergency rooms, which is the most costly and inefficient and ineffective way to get your health care. Again, we should be striving toward making sure everybody in this country has good, affordable health care that meets all their needs. And we should be making sure that nobody in this country is food insecure or hungry. We're going in the opposite direction. And people say, why are they making these cuts in these programs? They're making them to offset the cost of tax cuts for multimillionaires and billionaires. It's insane. And we have to change that. It's going to be difficult to kind of reverse all this, but that has to be our ultimate goal. I mean, we can't have a country where millions and millions of people don't have any access to health care, or that we see food insecurity rise. There's going to be they're cutting housing programs. Again, we need more affordable housing in Leominster, all around the country. These are wise investments, and by the way, they save you money down the road. I mean, right? Again, it's better to have reliable health care than go to the emergency room. People who are hungry, kids who are hungry don't learn in school. Even in Massachusetts, where we have universal school feeding, free school feeding, which is great, but you got to eat during the weekends too.
Yep.
And during vacation weeks, kids don't learn as well if they're food insecure.
Yep.
Workers aren't as productive. Senior citizens end up taking their medication on an empty stomach in an emergency room. We need to do better. And by the way, in this new legislation, I mean, some of the exemptions for veterans have been eliminated.
Yeah.
So veterans are going to find themselves in a very different set of circumstances. But this is about our values, and I'm going to tell you, this is not about Democrat, Republican, liberal versus conservative. I mean, when I go to any group to speak, everybody kind of talks about the same stuff, and I think we got to figure out a way, just you at the State House, me in Washington, to get the political powers to again focus in on issues that really make a difference in regular people's lives.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting from my perspective. You've been doing this a lot longer than me, but I came in and my first race was in 2016, where there's clearly across Leominster a lot of distrust of government and feeling like they're being left behind, and that there's a lot of programs out there that are hard to access, and for my family often kind of resulted in some distrust of governmental systems, right? Feeling like other folks were getting a hand up where they were struggling. And I ran for a lot of the same reasons of wanting to make government work better for folks, but feeling like, how do you cut through all of the noise to show that there are solutions out there that are also cost effective, but help folks across the board?
And that's why I go back to something you said before. If people have questions, or if they're, feel they're not getting the support that they deserve, they ought to call us, because we're living in an age when there's so many different ways to get information, and not all the information that's being put out there on social media, on these various platforms, is accurate. And so what some of these platforms are more polarizing than they are solution-oriented. Yeah, and the bottom line is we need to know what you're feeling, and we need to talk about how we can come up with solutions. I'm really sick and tired of the blame game now, where you can't get health care because illegal immigrants are on your health care. Well, on Medicaid, you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to get Medicaid. So I don't even know what that. But it's out there, right? The same thing on SNAP. No, you have to be a citizen to be able to get SNAP, or certainly a legal resident to get SNAP. I mean, but yet we're constantly talking about things, as the problem that are not the problem. We need to refocus on what the reality is, and we need to solve problems. I think that's the way we help regain the trust in government that, quite frankly, has been lost in so many communities over the years.
Yeah, we often wrap up our segments talking about if folks want to get involved at the state level, the federal level, the local level. What advice do you have? You've been advocating for our communities for decades, and we're really grateful for that. Do you have some wisdom to impart on folks who are just getting started?
Yeah, I mean, one is get involved. I mean, it really is, it sounds kind of simple, but everybody can do something. And we need good people to run for office. We need good people to serve on boards. We need dedicated good people, to show up at city council meetings and at community meetings. And everybody who's watching this has some power, has some influence. Use your voice. I think what I worry about right now is that, when you turn on the TV, there's like a zillion things happening all at once. You're like, I want to pull the shade. People feel hopeless and helpless, right? No, I mean, you have power. We can influence our friends and our family members. We can show up to vote on things for candidates that we care about. We can write letters to the editor. We can post stuff on social media. I think for those who are trying to silence the vast majority of people in this country, they just want you to feel hopeless. They want you to give up so they can just go in and take over. We can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. I mean, again, that's why, you at the State House and I at the federal level, will continue to talk about issues of affordability. Life is too hard for too many families in this country. Life is too hard for too many senior citizens who have, helped raise our families and have given so much to this country. Our veterans who fought in our wars, right? I mean, they shouldn't have to be living their later years with anxiety all the time. We ought to be able to guarantee them, a comfort level, that they deserve. And that's the challenge. And I think we have a chance to turn things around, in the next couple of years. And I hope that we will, because, I love this country. You love this country. That's why we're doing what we're doing. But we need to be better. And so that's what we're dedicated to.
I can speak to at the state level what has been really incredible is the ability for Leominster residents to be able to participate more robustly in the hearings process, to share their stories. We just had another constituent come out to the State House and tell her story for the first time to a briefing around mental health support services. And we're taking up 7,000 bills in a 2-year legislative session. So there can be a lot of really great ideas, but being able to show that personal story and that personal experience and create a sense of urgency if we've got to pass this legislation now. We have folks who have so many lived experiences that really can bring life to these really important bills.
And I think that's important for people to tell their stories, because when I say things like 17 million people are going to lose their health care because of the cuts in Medicaid, that's such an astoundingly high number. I think a lot of people have lost or are losing their human ability to feel what that means. But if I tell an individual story about somebody in this community who will lose their health care, that's very different. In our Leominster office, Eladia Romero tells me, we're getting more calls than ever before. I'm grateful for that. Not all the calls are nice, but most of them are. But people are asking for information, and they have questions, and they're looking for guidance of where they go to get problem solved. I think that we just need that to continue. And you know, government can play a positive role here. We can do some great things. Look, Social Security is government. I want to make sure that's there forever, right? You know, Medicare, Medicaid, you know, SNAP, you know, programs to deal with the fact that so many people can't find homes. All those things are good. Our infrastructure bills to rebuild our roads and our bridges. We need better rail systems. I mean, I don't know why in this country we decided to turn our backs on rail. But you know, go to Europe, go to Asia. I mean, they're investing like mad in rail service. It's energy efficient. It makes communities more livable. It connects communities better. We need to be doing more of that here, and government can play a role in helping with that. And again, you know, this is about focusing in on and helping our community here. You know, and again, I think we can. I think government can do better. And you know, we're going to continue to raise our voices and do what we got to do to try to refocus attention. But you know, I mean, you're here in the community all the time, meeting with people. I know that. I see it on social media. I hear about it. You know, I'm back every weekend. I'm trying to meet with as many people as I can. I'm trying to get those stories that I can tell in Washington. Hopefully it'll make a difference. And I think that's important. I think for too many politicians, they've lost connection with their communities, and they're more focused in on helping those who help them fundraise than they are on those who they're supposed to represent.
Well, I just appreciate how much time you spend here in Leominster, and I know you have a huge district, right, like across Central and Western Mass. So your willingness to like take the time, connect with folks. You've checked out Ripple Effect and visited with them again to see kind of how they're growing and creating those community spaces. I think are just really great. So
Ripple Effect
connected.
is an incredible organization. I mean, doing some really important stuff and making a real difference. I mean, helping people dealing with some really severe challenges, all of a sudden, you know, find their way to getting a job again, going back to school, you know, reconnecting with their families. But they remind us that every person in our community is important, and that. But the work that they're doing is extraordinary. And again, it's my second visit there, and I'm really proud of what they're doing.
I think wrapping up on the note of community and the importance of building community is a really great place to wrap today. Thank you so much for taking time to join me to Leominster Access TV for filming this, and I hope to see you very soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.